Chakraborty. Thanks for being with us this morning and sticking with us in our second hour of National Report. Now, most recently, we just heard from Governor Andrew Cuomo that New York, a second case has been confirmed of coronavirus. Are we expecting to hear more and more as the days continue on?
That's right. And so, again, the fear is real. And it's real because this disease seems to be spreading very rapidly and quickly around the world. It's made its way into the U.S. It's moving across the states. And so the measures that are being put in place are critical to quell that public panic. But that being said, majority of the cases, unless they're tested, and remember, we haven't been properly testing as of yet. This will be the week that we really get our testing going in the United States. And so we probably have mild versions of this virus already out there and haven't been accounted for. So the fatality rate is probably significantly lower than the initial estimates that came out of China, which was quite high and quite significant, which is what started this public panic and exported it. But ultimately, once we get our symptoms tested that are similar to common colds, that are similar to the seasonal flu, and then we are able to differentiate those symptoms to be because of the coronavirus, then we will begin to see a lowered mortality rate. So even though the majority of these cases are likely to come out as mild, ultimately, it is still significant that they're transmitting, and it's extremely important for us to be able to diagnose exactly which disease state that the symptoms are affiliated with. So as a state, local, and federal response, we can be on top of it and be proactive about it. That's going to be really important for us as we go forward, thinking about how to control this virus, whether it stays with us just through the season, maybe through the year, or it becomes like in swine flu, like H1N1, and it's something we coexist with going forward.
I want to ask you, Doctor, specifically about the case in Seattle. It is, in fact, alarming that coronavirus makes its way to a nursing facility, and then we have 4 more deaths after this. Obviously, these patients are susceptible to anything that could possibly bring them harm, like this, specifically a virus that we don't really know much about. How do we go about protecting our folks in nursing homes and facilities as such?
And that's a very good point, because even if we are of an age demographic that is not nearly as much risk, we all know and care for somebody in the demographics that are more vulnerable to the impacts of not just coronavirus, but anything that can really quickly move to negative outcomes, that can move to viral pneumonia. And that's what elderly people are much at higher risk for than the rest of the population in that sense. And so that is why it's so critical to stay on top of the symptoms and get them checked immediately. Not just if you are healthy and young, but also because you are in close proximity potentially and interacting with those that are more vulnerable. So it's not just something that elderly populations are suffering from. They are so reliant on interactions of those around them. So again, healthy communities still need to get their symptoms checked. They need to follow the local, state, federal guidelines, and they need to identify exactly which disease state their symptoms belong to, because that is going to be the best way we can protect those populations that are more vulnerable, like the elderly. We don't want to pass it on.
Well, we also want to talk briefly about the younger generation. Some schools are closing. Just very quickly, 30 seconds. When should we make the call as to when to send kids to school, stay home, or even work from home as well?
It's a double-edged sword that the federal government and the state governments are not being able to make decisions fully regarding this. So the federal government is now leaving it to local governments to make those decisions. And so the double-edged sword is that some school districts might sense danger over other school districts, and then we're not going to have a consistent response across the country. And we need to really trust our local officials and state officials to make that call, because it will vary. The spread of this disease will vary state by state, and it's really going to depend on what the different precautions are that those that we have elected into those positions see that need to be taken to protect their particular community. At a federal level, the advice will be there that will trickle down to the local levels, but ultimately it will be up to the school board to make those decisions.
All right, that is risk and behavioral scientist Dr. Shweta Chakraborty. Thank you very much for your time. Good thoughts there.
Still to come, we'll get a preview from Newsmax host John Bach.